evening, everybody. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe coming to you on Thursday, a little half hour earlier tonight. Getting ready to talk to you about the world of sports. Got a lot of football to get to as the quarterback carousel keeps spinning. Nate's got some thoughts about the combine and whose arrow is heading up while others are heading down. A lot to get to tonight. First of all, before we get into the football, bye-bye, Jim Boeheim. Not going to miss you.
God. 40. That guy's been the coach at Syracuse since I've been alive, and I have hated every moment of it.
To me, he's always been a jerk.
Oh, he's an asshole. And that guy should have been fired about 5 times for things that went on in his program and things that he covered up. And he killed somebody with his damn car. I mean, this guy gets away with everything, and I'm glad he's gone.
I'm just glad he's gone. People, would always. I remember back when Bobby Knight was at his best and worst, and Jim Boeheim was right up there with him for abusing the media, for just being a jackass totally, and yet he gets celebrated while Bobby Knight and deservedly so. Bobby Knight got raked over the coals, but why Boeheim was given the kid glove treatment, I'll never know. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Syracuse has one of the biggest media schools in America. And, the boys up there were loyal to the Orange and wouldn't dare go and say what the truth is about Jim Boeheim, which is may have been a really good basketball coach, maybe a great basketball coach, but as a person, he was just a jackass.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of – his 47 seasons were kind of summed up by the way he left. He didn't even really want to go, and they just finally had to fire him, basically, and replaced him. So it was so weird where, they kind of said he was leaving, and then, he wasn't even quoted in the announcement. He gave his retirement speech, and then he didn't want to talk about it, and then, kind of hinted he was going to retire, but then he didn't really say it, and then they were like, oh, he's been replaced. It was just really weird, but it didn't surprise me considering who we're talking about here.
No, and no matter what, I mean, the last couple of seasons, Syracuse has not been a power. Even since they made it to the ACC, he went there begrudgingly. We didn't want to go to the ACC. He said it out loud, and I think it affected his coaching. It affected his ability to recruit, and basically, it was a cloud over the program. The fact that when you have your coach that's really going, and it wasn't like he went from the Big East to, one of the worst conferences in the nation. You would think stepping up to the ACC, one of the best basketball legendary conferences for a guy who's a Hall of Fame coach, would be something he would embrace. But only Jim Boeheim could do, he made it into a crap show. So bye-bye. See you later. You've coached most of my life at Syracuse. I've watched your act. I'm over it.
Yeah, I'm just glad they lost, so we don't have to have a farewell tour of his ass.
Oh God!
I'm so glad they lost in the first, the first game against Wake Forest here. That he's done, because I'm ready for him to be gone.
Exactly. So let's get into football. I want to start out with we got a lot of quarterbacks.
Oh wait, before we get into football, we do need to note Duke and Tennessee also both advanced. So Nate Schmidt is a happy camper. I got to listen to a lot of both the games while I was working on my work here, and what a day! Great day. I love it when both my teams win. So I'm happy, man.
There you go. So we are getting ready for March Madness, which is going to be great next week. This is the best time for basketball ever.
Oh yeah.
It dominates. It's fantastic. But let's get to the football a little bit. The Giants did what they had to do. They signed I would think a reasonable contract for Daniel Jones. I mean, everybody was saying he won $45 million a year, this, that, and the other thing. They signed a reasonable contract for a quarterback they're going to have for the next 3 years. He seems to work well with this coach. I think it's good for the player. It's good for the team. It's good for the coach. I think it's a good situation for the Giants to be in. And Saquon, they slapped the franchise on him. They got a few months to try and maybe do work something out with him. But they have their 2 offensive stars in-house, and they can move forward and address where they really have to, which is outside and wide receiver, tight end, offensive line still, and the defensive side of the ball. They got to get some playmakers. So I think the Giants did what they had to do, and I do get mixed results up here living in the New York area. After months and months of, hand wringing, are they going to lose Daniel Jones? Can they get Daniel Jones? Will they get Daniel Jones? Now it's, do we want Daniel Jones? Get over it. My God. It's just, it would be interesting if you didn't get the game behind it, which is, oh, let's get phone calls. I just don't, I'm sorry. We'd love to get phone calls. We'd be able to get phone calls on this show so we could talk back and forth, but not at the expense of, being journalistically accurate. The Giants had to sign those new players. If they didn't, this whole last year is a waste.
Well, not only the last year, but the last several years. I mean, the whole point of this thing, the whole point of doing a draft, the whole point of having a personnel department and having coaches that develop players and having, a GM who evaluates the team is to try and build a team around pieces that you bring in. And part of that is drafting talent, developing it, and then building around it. And that's what they've done. They drafted these guys in the first. They drafted Saquon and Daniel Jones both early in the first round. And, that's their team. And those guys have been there for a long time. I mean, has Daniel Jones been great? No, but he had a good season. He certainly hasn't been the problem in New York over the last few years. I mean, it's been coaching. It's been a bad team for the most part. And he looked better last year. And like you said, this contract actually isn't that bad. The way that it's structured, they're only paying him $35 million next year and $30 million the year after that. And, honestly, they can get out of it after next season if he doesn't play well.
Right.
So I think it's a good deal for the team. I think you have to have some of these guys in place. You can't just go out and sign new guys
right.
At every position and throw darts at the dartboard every season and see where you get. You have to have some guys in place that know the system and then add pieces to it. That's how you win championships. Not saying the Giants are going to win the championship, Joe. Sorry. But I think they're going to be better because they're going to have a coach who's been there for more than 1 year. They're going to have a quarterback who understands what's expected of him, and they're going to have the running back too. So getting Jones done was huge because then they were able to assign the tag to Saquon, and now they can move forward trying to fix the rest of the holes in the team.
Well, and as you said, they're not going to win the championships this year, and that's well stated. But they were 1-4-1 in their division last year.
Yeah,
and getting spanked by the Cowboys and the Eagles. Do you want to get further away from those two teams? I mean, At least now you have guys that if you bring in some good players, maybe you can start to compete with the Eagles and the Cowboys. You have to win your division before you win anything else. So if you can't compete in your division, you're far away from competing for a championship.
Right. And who else? My question is, we paid too much. Who else were you going to get? You weren't going to get anybody good that's better than him, and you weren't going to get somebody that is better than him at a lower cost.
Right.
So I think this move, we talked about it, the last few weeks. This was how they had to get it done. They did get it done apparently at the last 10 minutes before the deadline, but that's all that matters is they did get it done. And now, they can try and build upon the successful season they had last year. And they can try and, get up to where the Cowboys and the Eagles are, which honestly, I don't think they're too far off.
No, they just needed, like I say, get some playmakers, keep everything, a lot, as always, a lot depends on health. Guys got to stay healthy, but the fact of the matter is they're heading in the right direction. They made the playoffs this year. They beat the Vikings. They had a playoff win.
Yep.
All the arrows are pointing up with the Giants. I'm happy what they did across town, and we were talking about this before we come on the air. The rumors are that Woody Johnson got on his jet and went out and talked to Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are now all in on Aaron Rodgers, and I guess they have to be with Derek Carr signing in New Orleans.
Yeah, they have to be all in on whoever because they have no quarterbacks, and there aren't many quarterbacks out there. So they got to be kind of all in on him.
They do. Otherwise, they'll be running the Wildcat all year long. But it's just it's typical Jet fashion here. I'm not saying for sure they do this, but it seems like they listen a lot to local sports talk radio and react to it. Because since mid-season around here, it's all been all Aaron Rodgers. And if you're the Jets and you have not kicked the tires, they did on Derek Carr. I don't know if they did on Jimmy G. You should on Lamar. I don't know why you're sleeping on Lamar. I mean, you should be kicking your tires on everything rather than a man who's 39 years old. And, I know the Jets have a lot of talent, especially on offense, and they're a good defensive team. They're on their way up. But I don't think they're right at the place that Tampa Bay was when Tampa Bay went out and got Tom Brady. Tampa Bay was ready to win. I don't know if this Jet team is ready to win a Super Bowl yet. I think they have to. Let's see what they can do in the playoffs. Let's see a few things more from them. I think. I don't know. What do you think?
They looked good at times last year. They definitely surprised me with the way the defense played. I didn't expect the defense to be that far along, I guess I should say. So I want to give Coach Saleh some credit for what he was able to do with the defense. But the offense, wow, they were horrible, and a lot of that points to the quarterback position.
Yeah,
let's just call a spade. I mean, the Jets cannot draft a quarterback.
No,
I mean,
they swung and missed twice badly.
Oh, they've swung and missed a ton of times. I mean, to go back to Mark Sanchez, go to Sam Darnold, go to Zach Wilson. Let's also go back to the show. When the draft occurred, when I said Zach Wilson's not the guy. Why are they picking him there? He's nowhere near the talent level needed to be a top 5 draft pick. I just didn't understand it. I didn't see what they were seeing, and obviously
they didn't either.
They just kind of. I think sometimes these teams they kind of materialize in their own mind what this guy is. Like, he's so good because this guy says he's good and he's going to be our guy. And they go out and draft these guys without them actually even being what they think they are. And that's where this team had troubles. Now, is this team ready to win a Super Bowl if they get Aaron Rodgers? I don't think so. But I think they'll be very competitive if they can get Aaron Rodgers. I mean, let's just talk about their roster for one moment here. They got some decent wide receivers now.
Yeah, I love the wide receivers.
Of the year. Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State. They signed Corey Davis from the Titans after he had a good season. He's a pretty good player. They still have their 4-year project, Denzel Mims, who may turn out good. And they've got Elijah Moore. So, okay.
I like Elijah Moore, too. When Elijah Moore's head's in the game, he's a pretty good wide receiver.
Yeah, when he wants to play, he's good. They got Tyler Conklin. They got Uzama. They got good tight ends. They've got great running backs. And Breece Hall, if he comes back from injury. Knight, Carter, those guys. The offensive line is coming together. So, you know what? They just need somebody who can throw the damn ball more than 15 yards. And, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is the best guy to get. But they're running out of options here. And I'm with you. I think that's a great point that you made in that I would be talking to Lamar. I would be calling his ass. I mean,
that's a 10-year quarterback, not a 2-year.
Two first-round draft picks for a guy that's won the MVP. I mean, you're talking about Aaron Rodgers being so great. Well, Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old. Lamar Jackson's younger than Stetson Bennett. And, I don't get it. I would sign him right now.
Think of your RPO when Breece Hall is healthy. You got Breece Hall, who's one of the fastest running backs in the NFL, and you got Lamar Jackson with the option of running the ball. What's the defense going to do in that situation?
Yeah, I don't know. I would be definitely, if I was in charge of the New York Jets, I would be certainly trying to work a deal out with Lamar. Maybe you strike out and Baltimore matches your deal. But if not, you lose 2 first round draft picks. Who cares? You're going to screw those up anyway if you try and draft a quarterback. So,
I know this has nothing to do with this time right now, but if you're a Jet fan, I mean, you should be wary of this. Even though injury cut him short, I mean, the Boomer Esiason didn't work out that great in New York City. No. Neil O'Donnell was terrible. Vinny Testaverde gave you 1 year because he had great coaching, but then he goes down his Achilles, and then after Parcells leaves, he's back to being Vinny interception. So I mean, they don't have exactly a great history of going out and getting someone else's star quarterback and having him do well in the city, should we say. I would, like I said, if I'm the Jets, especially with the young talent they have, I'm not looking for a 2-year solution. I'm looking for a 10-year solution. If I'm a Jet fan, I'm sick of getting my ass kicked. I'm sick of watching the Patriots make my team look foolish. I'm sick of the fact that I'm always the 3rd or 4th team in this division. And is one Super Bowl title going to do that for you? And then you go back to being nothing? No. Get a 10-year solution. I mean, the one thing like we said, we don't know what Daniel Jones is going to be next year, but if he keeps improving, you have a quarterback for the next 10 years. That's one thing I can say as a Giant fan, not to hold it over to Jets fans' head, but in my lifetime, had Phil Simms for 12 years, had Eli Manning for 15 years. Now we have a chance of having another quarterback for 10 or more years. That's nice to know that who you're going to be a quarterback for 10 years.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to draft a guy and develop him and keep him on your team and have some stability at the most important position in football.
Right.
And that's what the Jets haven't been able to do, and that's why they've sucked for so long. You have to get somebody in your program. You have to draft them. You have to bring them in. And, as we mentioned, this is kind of their last option here because I don't trust them to draft somebody. But I do think they'd be better served to go out if they're going to go the free agent route, or the trade route or whatever, they'd be much better served going after somebody who's not 40 years old,
exactly.
Like Lamar Jackson. But, the Jets, so that, they're going to screw this up.
Yeah, I know they are. And I just have this feeling they're going to be dancing this dance with Aaron Rodgers. And as you and I talked off the air, how much he likes being in the news. And the longer he can string this along, the more he's in the news every week. And in the biggest market, he could be the biggest news story in this market and never play here. That's what it's turning into.
He loves, the only person that likes Aaron Rodgers
is Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, he loves himself.
Well, Pat McAfee too, because Pat McAfee gets ratings off him, so Pat likes him too. So he's got at least one friend.
Yeah, well, he likes him because he makes him money, but does he really like hanging out with him? Who knows? But we'll see what happens here. But it's going to be interesting because I'm not sure that the Jets, are going to want to spend this much on the quarterback position. I mean, what is this going to cost them? I mean, are they aware of how much Aaron Rodgers is supposed to make next year? Because they've got some other positions they need to pay. And it's going to be difficult to do it if they give Aaron Rodgers $59 million.
Well, and the bottom line is the clock is ticking. Derek Carr is gone. People are now that Derek Carr has kind of left. Geno Smith has signed. Daniel Jones has signed. I mean, you're running out of options fast and furious. I mean, and like I heard, I'm not sure. You're a better expert. You know the contract better than me, or how the contracts. They don't really have to make a decision on Aaron Rodgers till June, from what I hear about with the Packers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they could string this along until after the draft and then put the Jets in a situation where, or the Jets have nowhere to go.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the Jets are trying to, get this done now. But, the Jets only have $3 million under the cap. And so I'm not sure, what their plan is financially. But I think that they are kind of all in on this because I'm not sure what they're going to do if they don't work this out with Aaron Rodgers. Now that they've kind of stuck their toe into the water, they kind of have to jump in, because if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, then what is the plan? They don't really have the capital to move up in the draft. They don't really have any tradable commodities where they can trade players for draft picks. I mean, who are they going to trade? They don't really have the ability, the attractiveness to get like Jimmy Garoppolo, who, let me tell you, is going to have a lot of people knocking on his door.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to have some interest, and he's going to get to choose where he wants to go. Now, may he want to go join Robert Saleh? I don't know. It's not like Robert Saleh coached him. Robert Saleh coached the defense. So he does know the guy, but that doesn't mean that he's just going to jump in bed with him.
And the thing I like how you brought that up, because the thing I always liked the thought of Jimmy Garoppolo coming to play for the Jets and Saleh when LaFleur was a coach.
Right.
Nathaniel Hackett was brought on for one reason, to attract Aaron Rodgers. And there's no relationship between, even though Nathaniel Hackett did well in Carolina when he was down there, or was it Jaguars? It was Jaguars or was it Carolina? He was in Carolina.
I believe he was in Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. Then 1 year with Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
So he did well there, but what we saw last year, not so much. And when he was in Green Bay, let's face facts, he was there to make Aaron feel good on the sideline, not exactly do anything with him. So I think once they went to Nathaniel Hackett, if I was Jimmy Garoppolo, I'd be looking other places.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's be honest. The Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett to get Aaron Rodgers last year, and that didn't work. So I don't know why the Jets think that Aaron's just going to jump over there because Hackett's there now. I mean, that obviously is not doing anything to sway Aaron Rodgers' decision-making. But, does it maybe give him a little bit of a heads up? I don't know. The question is, what does Aaron Rodgers really want to do? I mean, if he really wants to try and win another Super Bowl, well, probably going back to the Packers would be his best bet. I mean, I'm just being honest. I mean, even last year where, things were not great at the beginning of the season. By the end of the season, the Packers were humming.
Yeah.
I mean, they were playing great. I mean, once these young receivers started running the correct routes and started understanding their role in the offense and what they're supposed to do, and the offensive line got solidified, the Packers were a pretty tough team to beat. So I think he would, if he really wants to win, I think he'll go back where he's at.
Yeah,
a smart move to make.
I totally agree, because if you look at a division, for him to win in a division, okay, in the AFC, do you want to go an AFC West team and have to face Mahomes twice a year? Yeah. You want to go to East and get Josh Allen twice a year? You want to go to the Central and get Joe Burrow twice a year? And then South, you want to go South and get Trevor Lawrence twice a year? I mean,
even if he goes to the Jets, to win the division, you've got to beat Josh Allen and Mac Jones and the Patriots. And then if you get out of the division, then you've got to, deal with Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and, whoever the hell else is playing good at that time. It would behoove him to stay in the NFC where there's no good quarterbacks.
Right. Well, you got Jalen Hurts coming up. You're going to have to get through Philadelphia. But I like my odds there, having to go through one team rather than do it with two good quarterbacks in my division, and then have to do it with two good quarterbacks in the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, the Eagles have themselves a heck of a offseason to deal with on their own terms. They've got about 11 starters that are free agents. So we'll see what magic that old Howie can work out. But it's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Eagles as well.
Just one thing, Howie, don't sign Boston Scott. Let him go to the AFC. Get him out of the Giants division, please. Because, he spends more time in the Giants end zone than anybody on the Giants.
Yeah, he's pretty problematic for the Giants defense. There's no doubt about that.
And let's talk about a little Derek Carr here, because he did sign with the Saints. Don't know if it's a good move for him. I mean, he's going to a division that's going to be wide open. That division, you and I talked about it the last couple of weeks. You can look at even Carolina's going to be in the mix right away this year. He's in a crappy division because Tampa Bay doesn't have a quarterback. Desmond Ridder, don't know what he's going to be yet. You got Frank Reich looking for his quarterback in Carolina. And New Orleans now at least have their quarterback. If not a great coach, they have their quarterback. But it's still it's a sad division. I mean, winning that division as we saw with Tampa Bay last year, not so much. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my question is Derek Carr going to get this guy fired again? He's already gotten him fired once in Oakland, and
I
now
forgot about that.
Yeah, now he's his coach again here in New Orleans. So does he barely survived year one? Dennis Allen's obviously who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Does he survive year two? Now that he's got Derek Carr again, I don't know. I mean, this team is way better than what they looked like last year. I mean, I know they finished 7-10, but how many games were the Saints winning in the fourth quarter that they blew? I mean, there was 2 of them that they blew against the Buccaneers alone. So I'm worried about their coaching staff, the way that they mismanaged the end of the games, the way they mismanaged the clock was very, very troublesome to me. But on the same token, as you mentioned, the division's garbage. And this team has a ton of talent on it. I mean, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, if he can come back healthy, Traquan Smith, Jarvis Landry, Callaway. I really like what this team's got. The offensive line is kind of concerning to me, but there's some pieces there to work with. And obviously the defense is really good. So I like this team on paper. It's just last year with the coaching staff that they decided to let run the team. The record didn't look really good. My question is, what happens to Seamus Jameless now? Because they paid him some money and he's going to get paid basically probably to walk away unless they decide to keep him as Derek Carr's backup. But I'm interested to see what happens to Jameis.
If I was him, I'd be looking at Denver. Never know with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. Never know how that's going to work. I mean, they're kind of committed to him, but at least he's a plan B sitting up there that knows Sean Payton. And let's face facts, Sean Payton got the best out of him before his knee injury.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it's about the money and wanting, I don't see Jameis going anywhere. Well, he could go anywhere. I mean, he could end up starting somewhere. I mean, he could go to Houston and start. He could go to Carolina probably and start. He can go to 4 or 5 different teams. But he is a quarterback that needs to be put in the right situation, whether it's his fault, whether whatever. He's got an interception problem. And, under Sean Payton, he seemed to have that reined in. And the other thing is you got to worry is this back. What is going on with his back?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got to be close to healthy. If I was Jameis Winston, what I would do is go to San Francisco. I would sign right now with the 49ers and be their stopback guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'd be their guy to, kind of wait out the injuries. I mean, Trey Lance, who knows where he's at health-wise. Brock Purdy's not going to be ready to start the season. I think if you're choosing between Trey Lance and Jameis Winston, I'd rather take the guy that started more than 2 quarters and go with him. So if I was him, that's where I would go and try and resurrect my career and win some games. I mean, hell, the last pick in the draft looked like Joe Montana with this team, with the defense they've got, with the players they've got on offense, with the system that they run, with the coaches that they've got,
right?
Play calling. I mean, hell, all he's got to do is hand the ball off to Christian McCaffrey and chuck it out to Debo a couple times a game, and you get a victory. So, I mean, that's what I would do if I was him. I don't know if the Niners want to go that route, but if he wants to, resurrect his career, I think that'd be probably the best move to make.
And then one thing he does give me, even though I'm gonna, admittedly, I'm not a Jameis fan. I'm not a fan of him. I admit he has great talent and stuff. I just not a fan of his. But the one thing he would give San Francisco that they haven't had in a long time is a guy who could throw the ball long.
Yeah.
Jimmy G was a great system passer, a great, slants, those kinds of routes he excelled at. But he wasn't going to stretch the safeties up for you. Whereas no. Jameis Winston would make it where, and going along with what you said, you got a running game. You want to keep those safeties off the line of scrimmage. He would do that for you.
They've got to bring in somebody. I mean, they got to have somebody that can play at the beginning of the year, and their options are somewhat limited. So I'm just looking at all of the, there's a lot of teams that need a quarterback, but, do those teams want Jameis Winston? I don't know. But there's teams that have, limited resources for that position. I mean, you can only put so many resources into one position and still have success. And that's why I think if he's willing to take a little bit of a pay cut, he might be able to go up there and start, 7, 8, 9 games and, look good doing it and then get himself another job.
Wow. It's a good place for him to land. I wasn't even thinking about him doing that, but it does seem like that would be a really good place for him to land. Like you said, the system would work towards him, and they have a need, and they're not going to bring back Jimmy Garoppolo again.
No,
because that would just look foolish.
Well, and think about the way he was treated last year.
Yeah.
I mean, first off, this guy's class act. He never said a word.
Right.
He never batted an eye. He never said a cross word about the organization. But let's be completely and utterly honest. As a human being, I sound like Howard Eskin from Philadelphia. But yeah, as a human being, he couldn't have enjoyed that year last year. I mean, he was throwing the football on the sideline. He was, thrown to the dogs. We don't want your ass. And then all of a sudden he's got to start again. He wins a bunch of games, and then all of a sudden they love him again. And it's like, wait a second, you wanted to, chuck me into the wolves, 3 weeks ago, and now I'm your buddy. He's going to move on.
And then Brock Purdy comes in, and everybody goes, Jimmy Jew, who? Jimmy Jew?
Jimmy J?
I don't know who that guy is, but anyway, so let's talk. I mean, Jimmy G, we might as well talk about it. If he goes to Houston, it'd be a huge mistake to make. He's going to get his ass beat, and for no reason. Because you're going to have to get a quarterback where they're drafting, and with the fact of the matter is, he'll get there and be their bridge quarterback and take a beating. And as you said I root for Jimmy G because, like you said, he's a class act. And he deserves better than he's getting. Yes, he's a little fragile. I get it. It's frustrating. But he has shown he can get a team to the Super Bowl. He's shown he can get teams to championship games. He does not deserve to be on a 3-14 team taking a beating for the next quarterback. If I was his agent, and even if he wants to go there, I'm like, no, I won't let you do that. For me, I mean, go to Tampa Bay. Go somewhere where you got a chance to at least compete a little bit.
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay might be a good spot for him. However, I am a little bit more of a fan of Kyle Trask than some other people. I mean, all I hear on NFL radio with especially the afternoon crew with old Bruce Murray is how that Kyle Trask is their only quarterback on the roster, and he's certainly not ready to play. How the hell does he know? Kyle Trask, if you remember, led the Florida Gators to the SEC championship game, and they've been utter garbage ever since he left. And this guy, was killing it. And I thought looked pretty good. And what has he done since then? He's got to sit and learn and develop and watch, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time and, get better. So if anybody should be ready to play, is Kyle Trask, in my opinion. And I think that the Tampa Bay feels comfortable with him. Yeah. Do I think they would maybe like to have a veteran like Jimmy Garoppolo to be there to kind of either start the season and have Trask come in, if he falters or when he gets hurt or whatever. I think they would prefer that. But let's be honest, Tampa Bay is in a horrible situation financially. They're $50 million over the cap plus, and they're still not sure how they're going to handle Tom Brady's cap hit at this point. They're in big time trouble. So I just don't think they're going to be able to financially bring in somebody like Jimmy G, based on the amount of money he's going to garner.
Well, how about Miami for Jimmy G? They're not exactly totally bought into Tua. It seems they like him, but he gets injured, and there's some things about him I guess they don't like, basically mostly because of the injuries. He knows the coach. I don't know. What do you think about Tua? Does he have Tua and him have the same type arm, or does Tua have a better arm
Then Jimmy G?
Yeah.
They're pretty similar in the sense that they're guys that, understand the game. They know where to put the football. I mean, they don't have the biggest arms, but they know it's all about timing and understanding where guys are going to be and throwing dudes open. And they both can do that. They're different players for sure. I mean, one guy is left-handed and one guy is a little bit older and one guy's younger, but they claim to really like Tua. I mean, that's all I've heard from McDonald in the offseason is how much they're in love with Tua and how they're invested with him. But let's be honest, they have to be somewhat concerned after last season with the concussions. I mean, what happens, Joe, when Tua gets knocked out with a concussion in week 3? I mean, their season, their franchise is going to be a mess if that happens. So as an organization, they have to be thinking of a backup plan. I mean, I hate to say that, and I feel bad for Tua because of it. They can go ahead and roll him out there as the starter if they want to. He played good when he was healthy, but the thing is, there has to be a backup plan.
Yeah, and I think Jimmy G, that might be a good landing spot for him. For me, other guys around there. I mean, Tennessee, we talked about it off the air. What are they going to do with Tannehill? Apparently, they're ready to move on, but they can't move on because they don't have a plan B. There's your total don't have a plan B team. For years, you talked about it. When they had Tannehill, before they went out and got Willis last year as their hopeful quarterback in the future, but as we've seen, there's a guy who's not ready for prime time. But for years, you talked about the fact that Tannehill, there was nobody behind him.
They always had Logan Woodside and no one else. And it was like, well, Tannehill's not a young guy, first off. He's pushing almost 40 years old. I mean, he's mid-30s, and he's had several injuries over the last few seasons. Even when healthy, let's be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of him.
He's a middle-of-the-road quarterback.
Well, think about the game, against the Bengals. 2 seasons ago, they're the number 1 seed. They've got the bye. The Bengals come into town, and he throws 3 interceptions to start the game, the middle of the game, and the end of the game. And that did it. That was the end of the Titans, and they really haven't recovered from that game. And instead of move on and drafting a quarterback that could potentially take over for him, they drafted Malik Willis. And let's be honest, the reason John Robinson got fired is because he drafted Malik Willis.
Yeah.
And now they're in big time trouble. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if you've noticed, but they're cutting guys, releasing guys left and right because they have to. They're in big time cap trouble. They don't really have the money to sign Jimmy Garoppolo, although I think that would be a really good move for them. But they're probably going to have to run Ryan Tannehill back out there. And I just don't know what else they can do because they're in such bad shape financially. And they don't really have a good draft position to bring somebody in this year. And they drafted a guy last year. So Tennessee, to me, is a mess. And I feel bad for their new GM because he kind of inherited a nightmare.
And I feel sorry for Vrabel. I mean, I like Vrabel. I like Vrabel very much. But as you're pointing out, he was sitting there watching it happen. Yeah. Did he go up to the GM and go, what the hell are we doing?
He did actually. At one time, he did when they traded away his one wide receiver. I mean, let's just talk about this team for a second. Who's their go-to wideout?
The Giants are probably in better shape.
I mean, tell me. I mean, I'm waiting to hear because I don't know who it is. They drafted this Traylon Burks kid who, don't get me wrong, he's talented, but he couldn't really even stay on the field last year. Much less know where he's going on the field. So wide receiver position is a disaster. The only guy they had last year that had any semblance of a career as a wideout was Robert Woods, and they got rid of him. They already released him. Yeah. So, they got Westbrook Akine. They've got Chris Conley. Kyle Phillips. This team is just a mess right now. Their offensive line is garbage. Taylor Lewan is now out of there. They released him. The running back position besides Derrick Henry, I think kind of scares me. Their defense is in bad shape because Harold Landry is coming off an injury. They already released Bud Dupree. They've got serious issues, and I love the coach. I'm obviously a big
Yeah.
fan of him, considering he's a Buckeye. But I mean, this guy's been making magic happen with not much, roster help, and I just don't know how he's going to do it next year, especially if they can't get the quarterback position solved.
Yeah, and what? I'm just throwing this out here. You're the one who knows the contracts and everything. How about Derrick Henry to Chicago for the number 1 pick?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think Derrick Henry's worth the number 1 pick because he's my favorite player of all time. But honestly, I don't know if his value is viewed as that around the league. I think Derrick's probably going to get traded. What Tennessee gets in return for him, I don't know. I think it's probably more like a 3rd-round pick right now with incentives. Maybe if he runs for 1,000 yards, it becomes a 2. If he runs for 1,500 and does such and such, it becomes maybe a 1. But right now, I just think they're going to probably try and maybe get a 3 for him with an incentive-laden trade prospect because every team knows the situation they're in.
Right.
They're in big-time trouble. And they're in cap hell, and they need help, and other teams know that, so they're not going to help out the Titans, by taking on Derrick Henry's contract when the Titans are trying to get out from under it. Now, I think it would be a huge disservice to Derrick by trading him right now after this team's run him into the ground. However, I think it would be good for Derrick. I want him to go to a contender. The Bears
can win.
Yeah, somewhere where he can win. And honestly, the Bears wouldn't be a bad spot because they have a really good running game.
Right.
And, they may not be ready to win the Super Bowl, but it would be a place where Derrick can flourish. So I just hope he goes somewhere where he can maybe not have to carry it 500 times a year and he can have a chance to win.
Well, and the other thing is I think having a running game to go with him where he doesn't have to run for 100 yards a game would take a little bit off of Justin Fields' plate where he could concentrate on maybe – getting used to the passing game more and stuff and develop as a quarterback. It's the people who are giving Justin Fields a hard time right now don't realize that he was the best runner and the best passer on the team. It's hard to be both things.
Yeah, what is he supposed to catch it too? I mean,
yeah.
He's supposed to throw it to himself. I mean, we talked about it before the season. They had no offensive line. They had no running backs really, a couple guys that were decent. But, mainly the guy from Iowa State I like, and the Khalil Herbert, the young running back, looked, to be okay. But their offensive line was garbage. Their receivers were just beyond trash. I'm surprised he actually did it. It really blew me away how well Justin Fields played considering what was around him. I mean, they got rid of anyone that they had that was any good on defense as the season wore on. They traded Robert Quinn to the Eagles. They traded Roquan Smith to Baltimore, and it was just like anybody with a pulse got shipped out of town. And Justin kept, getting them into games and it helped them look pretty solid out there. These people that are talking about, trading away Justin Fields, I think are nuts. This guy's proven to me he can play at this level.
Well, yeah, and I don't think getting Bryce Young or one of these guys is an upgrade. I think Justin Fields has experience, and like you said, he showed what he can do. He's a leader. The team loves him. I just think he could be the face of your franchise for 2 years. That's the whole thing with football now. Well, generally in sports, you got a very short shelf life to prove what you can be. And then, everybody judges you after a year. I mean, think about it. To go back to the beginning of the broadcast, this time last year, we were sitting there, can Daniel Jones stay healthy? Can Daniel Jones be an answer for the Giants? And now he may never win a Super Bowl, but he can be a good quarterback on this team.
Yep.
So
that's what they need. And I'm telling you, why start over when you've already drafted this guy very high? You've developed him for a couple of years. To me, I see Justin Fields kind of, morphing into a Jalen Hurts type of quarterback. I see him developing just like Jalen did. I mean, people were ready to get rid of Jalen. If you don't
Right.
recall,
Yeah.
after the loss to Tampa Bay in the playoffs, there was a lot of Philadelphia fans that wanted nothing to do with Jalen Hurts, and they wanted to bring in a quarterback. They wanted to trade him. They wanted to move him to running back. I mean, there was lots of people even talk that we had on this show told me I was an idiot for thinking that he was good. And look at him now. He led his team to the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that Justin Fields is going to lead the Bears to the Super Bowl because they certainly don't have a comparable roster that the Eagles did. But I do think he's going to take a next step forward. I've seen this kid, man. I've seen him, I've seen him for years at Ohio State. And I've never seen a quarterback quite like him, man. He's a great kid. And he is a really, really good athlete and a great quarterback.
Exactly. So there's no reason to move on from him, but they got to get support around him.
Yes.
The other thing I heard today, the rumor is Matt Stafford's done in LA. They're going to try and trade him. But as you and I talked about off the air, there's so many quarterbacks out there to be gotten, and he's got health issues. And as you said, he's not getting younger.
Yeah, I mean, he already restructured his contract. For 2022, he took a base salary of $1.5 million. He took a $12 million signing bonus. They couldn't get rid of him because at that point, he would have been a $63 million cap hit. If they were to get rid of him right now, he'd be $50 million dead cap. That's just that's hamstringing a team that's already kind of hamstrung by all the veterans they have and all the picks they don't have. I understand they may try and trade him to get some picks back, but what are you going to give for a guy who's 35 years old and has injury problems? I mean, I'm not giving up a first-round draft pick for this guy, especially when I know the situation that the Rams are in. I think he's going to stay right where he is at this point. I think the Rams are kind of stuck with him, and that's why I kind of hope the Rams keep Baker there because, Baker can potentially get some starts in if Stafford goes down or isn't able to play. This could be a spot where Baker could actually become a starter once again if he plays his cards right.
I totally agree with you there because I look around the league and I don't see a good place for Baker to go to.
No.
Does he want to go to a team like the team we just talked about, Tennessee, and take the beating he took in Cleveland all over again?
Oh, God. I hope not.
I mean, where does Baker go that makes any kind of sense and that needs a starter right now? Baker needs to sit for a while, maybe get knocked down. He's been knocked down a peg, but maybe he needs a little bit of humility and kind of maybe the Geno Smith kind of, and we'll get right to Geno after this, the Geno Smith thing where you spend your time on the bench and then you take over, and at least for now, Seattle seems to think Geno Smith is their answer.
They're certainly paying him like that. I mean, 3 years, $75 million. That's kind of where he's at, and he's got. I think he's got about $30 million guaranteed. I mean, this was a good contract, I think, for both the team and for Geno. I mean, he's played his cards right. He's worked very hard. He's 32 years old now. He's sat for quite some time, waiting for his chance to come back and be a starter. And now he signed a 3-year, $75 million extension with Seattle, and there's $30 million of incentives. So he can earn up to $100 million. And, will he play like he did last year? I don't know. As me and you talked about, he did slough off a little bit at the end of the year. Was that all Geno? Was that, the team not being that great? I mean, let's be honest. We all thought that Seattle was going to be one of the worst teams in the league.
Right.
I certainly did. They got rid of Russ. They got rid of Bobby Wagner, who's been their captain and their Super Bowl winning middle linebacker and the leader of their team for years. They kind of dumped a bunch of talent, and we just kind of thought that was it. And they were able to, have a really good season based upon the way that Geno played. So I think they showed that they know what they're doing because of the way that Russell Wilson's year went in Denver. I certainly think Geno looked a lot better with the way he played. But I do think this is a deal where, if Geno doesn't live up to the contract, they can get out from under it. Right. And they may still draft a guy and bring him in to compete, because I really don't think that Drew Lock is going to be the answer or the heir apparent. I think they're going to have to bring somebody in.
Oh yeah, they'll get a quality backup. But I think Geno. I think the Seahawks probably are looking not for this draft, maybe for next year's draft as their next quarterback. Then 2 years behind Geno, and hopefully he'd be ready to go. I don't know if they'd rush and get it. I don't know where. Well, I don't know if they're going to be around to get a really good quarterback. We're going to do a lot about the draft, and this is not exactly a great quarterback draft.
No, but on that note, I do feel like there's a couple of sleepers in here that teams may be able to get, in later rounds that could end up being starters in this league. And number one, obviously, I'm talking about Hendon Hooker, the kid from Tennessee. I mean, he tore his knee. This guy was probably set up to potentially win the Heisman, to potentially play for the national championship, to do a whole lot of things till he tore his knee in that South Carolina game. And since then, he's kind of been an afterthought. And he's probably going to slide either to the second or the third round. And that's a spot where a team like Seattle can go and grab this guy and put him on the shelf because he's not going to be ready to play at the beginning of the year. But if something goes wrong, if Geno gets hurt, if Geno doesn't play well, this is a dude that can come in and play. And I'm not saying necessarily he's going to go to Seattle, but I do think that a team is going to draft him in the second or third round and have a guy that could come in and end up potentially being their starting quarterback.
All right, well, let's go. Let's make sure we hit every team we think needs a quarterback in this draft before we get into the combine with you. Start with the AFC East. Buffalo set. New England, I think, even though there's rumors going up and down, they're not exactly happy with Mac. They got Mac. We already talked about the Jets there and the Dolphins, the question marks there. Go to the Central. Burrow, I hear, is going to get set a record for an extension. Pittsburgh looks like Kenny Pickett's going to be their guy for at least for the next year or two. I think Kenny Pickett, you saw it in him. I didn't see it in him. He impressed me this year when he came off the bench and what he did. Baltimore, not so much. Cleveland, Deshaun Watson, whether they like it or not, they're married to him forever. So they're stuck with him. Jaguars, great place. They're in a wonderful place. Colts
need a quarterback, and we kind of glossed over Baltimore there. But Baltimore needs a quarterback. I mean, I know they tagged Lamar, but I got to be honest with you. If I'm Lamar Jackson, I don't walk out in that field on that tag. I mean, I'm sorry. I'll sit on the damn bench. I will refuse to play.
What does he get with the tag? Was it 32?
Yeah, $32 million. I mean, that's not.
But wait. Daniel Jones isn't better than him, and Daniel Jones got more money.
This is my whole point, man. I mean, first off, Daniel Jones had one good year. Okay, let's be honest. I mean, in totality, he really had one good season where he looked like a guy that could be a starter in this league and win games. Lamar Jackson's been doing it for 4 years. He was the MVP of this league. He's 45-16 as a starter. And you know what? As we talked about, people don't want to give him any credit for those 45 wins, but they want to give him all the blame for the 16 losses. And guess what? That's not how it works. Yeah. You get credit for both. Okay. And this guy is a winner. He's a hell of a quarterback. He's a hell of an athlete. He's a hell of a football player. He should be signed already. Now, whether that's the Ravens dragging their feet or whether that's Lamar not having an agent or whether that's both. I think it's both.
I think I was about to say, I think he's finally got to bite the bullet and get an agent. He needs somebody that can represent him 100% of the time so he can just concentrate on being him a quarterback.
I agree. But at the same time, this is where he's outplayed his rookie contract. Okay. I think we can all agree that this guy, I mean, if you don't live up to your contract, they cut your ass. Okay. Right. And then you overplay your contract. You don't necessarily get money. Okay. Whoa. That's not how it works. So I just feel like Lamar should get paid. The Ravens should be, doing whatever they can to try and make sure that he's happy and that he's compensated. They haven't done that. They're tagging him. I kind of thought they were going to tag him the whole time. I never really thought they wanted to get a deal done with him, especially after the last 2 years when he's gotten banged up at the end of the year. I feel like they kind of used that as an excuse to kind of drag this thing on. And I feel like now he should go out. I mean, he's allowed to go out and see if anybody else wants to sign him. And all these teams are saying they're not interested. I think that's a load of crap.
But that's where you got to get an agent. That's where you have to. You got to. You know, anybody who knows me knows I hate agents. I hate agents with a passion because I think, you know, the agents are the anti-fans. You know, they drive up the prices, but realistically,
they serve a purpose.
But yeah, because realistically in the world, we're seeing it play out right now. The Ravens don't have a quarterback, so they need Lamar. Yes. Lamar just wants to get paid what he's worth.
Right.
And let's face facts. Anywhere in America, whatever boss you work for, if you're willing to, if they can force you to take less money, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
So that's why you need an agent if you're someone like Lamar. And Lamar, go out and get yourself an agent and get yourself protected. That's all I got to say.
I agree. But I kind of want him to move on.
Yeah.
Because look at
I want to see him with the Jets. I want to see him with the Jets.
I want to see him go to Miami because I want to see him with Tyreek Hill and I want to see him with Jalen Waddle. I want to see him with that offensive scheme, with that play calling. I mean, that offense is just built for Lamar, and I feel like he wants to go home anyway. Okay. I look at what the Ravens have done when Lamar's been hurt. They've done nothing. They've been garbage. They've gotten beat up. They can't really even win a game. They can't score any points. I mean, that's where you see the value of Lamar is when he's been hurt. Look what the team has done. I mean, they're not even close to what they were with him. So I definitely think I'm hoping Lamar gets out of there and gets to go somewhere else. But that's a team that needs a quarterback too. But the Colts, as you mentioned, what do you think the Colts are going to do?
I don't know because they have the worst ownership in the world.
With that
they can get Carson. They can get Carson Wentz back.
They could. They might take him actually at this point.
They might have to
with what they've got going on.
I mean, you know, it's like, you know, is Teddy Bridgewater busy? I mean, you know, it's like, you know, they're coming. They're doing what the Jets are doing right now. Make a move, do something, get serious, but don't. What's the saying from the my favorite saying from the show The Wire? You're king, you better not miss. And you know, these guys are like they're shooting for the king, and they're you know, I don't know. It doesn't look like the Colts even have they're sitting on their hands as usual without a plan. And you know, who knows what they're going to do.
They've screwed this up for years.
It's amazing. You know, Frank Reich got fired. I was not a big Frank Reich fan. I mean, I think he had a lot of chances to make it happen, but he kept them competitive. And then you see, you know, without him, they're a mess.
Yeah. So, and they finished 4-12-1. And, you know, when he left, they were tied or right half a game back from Tennessee to win the division. And then they hired a guy who never coached a day in his life, and they went 4-12-1. Now they're sitting with the 4th pick in the draft. You know, let's be honest, at that position, Bryce Young's probably gone. You know, CJ Stroud could be there.
Hello, Will Levis.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably who they'll pick, considering who's running that team. But, you know, I think they have the opportunity to sit where they are and draft a quarterback because Chicago, in my opinion, is not going to draft one.
No,
Houston is, but Arizona is not. Now, will some teams potentially move up? Yeah, and if they do, the Colts could be in big trouble.
Yeah, that can't happen. You're right. I mean, especially Chicago, get rid of that pick. Someone looking for a quarterback and get how many draft picks back for it? So yeah. It'd be a nice call there. So then we're in the South. You know, Jaguars are set. Houston will be looking. Colts are looking. Tennessee should be looking, but they do have Tannehill just sitting there. Then you go out west where it's the powerhouses. Kansas City set. Chargers set. You got Geno Smith just got hired, and not Geno Smith. You got the Raiders need a quarterback, and you got Denver who's stuck with a quarterback. So.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest question mark in that division is obviously Las Vegas. You know,
Jimmy
what
G
what
again.
what are they going to do, man? I mean, if they don't get Jimmy G, what the hell are they doing? I mean, what is the plan there? They got rid of Derek Carr like he was the whole problem, and yet they have no answer for the problem. I mean, right now Jarrett Stidham is their starter and Chase Garbers is their backup. So if you think you're going to go out there and improve on your 6-11 record with Jarrett Stidham and Chase Garbers, you got another thing coming. So I don't know, man. They better figure out a way to get Jimmy Garoppolo signed, because I'm not sure what they're going to do if they don't.
Yeah, the clock is ticking. I mean, and then in that division, you're looking at 4 losses potentially right away with the Chargers and the Chiefs. So what's the best division record going to be? 1-5?
Yeah, but now the Raiders are picking number 7, okay? And they've got Denver and LA in front of them. Denver's not taking a quarterback. The Rams aren't taking a quarterback. So, what happens there? I don't know, but they're going to definitely probably try and draft somebody. But is Las Vegas one of these teams that wants to move up? I think they are. What do they have to move up? What kind of capital do they have? I'm not 100% sure. But we'll have to see. I mean, in a lot of the mocks that I've seen, they've got the Raiders sitting right where they are and taking Anthony Richardson. I couldn't think of a worse move than doing that.
Yeah. There was a scout that was on ESPN radio this weekend, and he pointed out one of the greatest things he said about Anthony Richardson, and some you've been pointing out as well. 1-year starter, or 1.5-year starter, whatever.
Basically,
and he goes, and every big game he's played in, he's not played well. And he brought up the point. He goes, no, but he goes, people were shocked. He goes, when they watched this year how Brock Purdy had stepped in. He goes, Brock Purdy started for 4 years in college.
Yeah,
on a big program. He's seen everything, and he played in every situation. He goes, that's the problem with Anthony Richardson. You don't know what he is. He goes, everybody knew what Brock Purdy was. Maybe they didn't like it. Maybe they overlooked it. But the fact of the matter is, he had a body of work, and he's been there. The experience you get by playing, where these other guys, they take him after a year and they think, oh yeah, look at all that. As he said, great talent. He goes, athletically great talent, but how does that translate on the field in a football game?
Well, yeah, you can be the greatest athlete in the world, but I mean, look at Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady was not a great athlete, but he's a great quarterback. I mean, that's what we're looking for here. We're not looking for a track athlete. We're looking for someone that can play quarterback in the NFL. This guy could not complete 54% of his passes in college. This guy could not beat Emory Jones, who couldn't even win the damn job in Arizona State. And now he's transferring again to another school. He's going to Cincinnati now. Emory Jones is. So can he win the job at Cincinnati? I have no idea. But he certainly won the job 2 years ago in Florida. Now, Emory saw the needle kind of pushing towards Anthony Richardson's barometer. He got out of town, and then Richardson became the starter. But let's be honest, last year was a train wreck for the Florida Gators. So why this guy is projected as a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, I have no idea. He's either going to be, one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, or he's going to be one of the worst. And I tend to think he's going to be one of the worst because I just didn't see it. I think he's a good athlete. I think he is one of the best athletes I've ever seen, honestly. But do I think that translates into being a good quarterback in the NFL? I do not. And I think a team that drafts him, especially a team like Las Vegas, that has to play somebody right now, I think that's a horrible move.
But in going back to my point, I mean, the last time the Raiders went out on a limb like this was Jamarcus Russell.
How'd that work?
Not worried at all. And if you looked at Jamarcus Russell at LSU, he was behind Matt Flynn for most of his time there.
Correct.
Except for his last year.
Correct.
So, I mean,
and
he was on a super team.
Same type thing, man. This guy had a rocket arm and all the, all the athletic ability in the world, but, 10-cent head and not a whole lot of, quarterback abilities as far as reading defenses and sifting through coverages and going through his progressions and things of that nature. That's what matters. And I didn't see it. I mean, let's be honest. They're talking about, Anthony Richardson getting better. He got worse as the season went along. I mean, his best game was week 1 against Utah, and then things went downhill from there.
Exactly. And now let's go to the NFC. Giants are set. Eagles are set. Cowboys are set. Redskins, not so much. I mean, Sam Howell is what they're betting on, but I don't know. I mean, one good game at the end of the year makes him your quarterback of the future. I don't know,
man. I honestly feel really bad for Eric Bieniemy because this team has an opportunity to be a good football team, but it's the same problem every single year. They end up starting Taylor Heineke come week 5, and that's what's going to probably happen again if they're able to even sign Taylor Heineke.
Right, exactly. And the Central, Detroit, we've talked about it many times. Jared Goff, thank God he's finally getting the credit he deserved. A class individual, just like Jimmy Garoppolo, left a championship-ready team to the Siberia of the NFL and made it work so far. And I would love to see him get him to the playoffs. We've talked about Green Bay, and as you talked about with me before we came on the air, we didn't say it. I said I could see Aaron Rodgers going back, and as you brought up, rightly so. Well, then what are you going to do with Jordan Love? He's been sitting around waiting for how long?
Yeah, 4 years.
And you're going to have to find out what you got or whatever. But that Minnesota, we talked about, a little bit of a mess. Chicago, underrated. Think you're going to be fine. Just stay the course. Get a team around them. You'll be fine.
Yep.
You go down to the South. We went through that mess down there. Everybody needs a quarterback. You like Kyle Trask to at least be able to get Tampa Bay a little bit righted, keep them competitive. Derek Carr, we don't know if he's going to be answered. Carolina, no quarterback yet. Desmond Ridder, if you're Desmond Ridder and you're not at the facility right now showing the coaches you really want to be the quarterback of the future, you're missing a great opportunity.
Yep.
And then out west, we talked San Francisco. Jameis Winston is an option. They're going to have unfortunately, they are a team that's blessed with potentially 2 quarterbacks in the future who can't stay on the field right now because one has a bad arm injury and it's going to take a while to get better, although he looked really good. And Trey Lance just can't stay on the field.
Yeah.
The Rams, we talked about. Baker Mayfield, we both agree, great place for him to stay. It looks like Stafford is getting closer to his broadcasting career, should we say?
Yeah, I mean, I love the guy. I've always liked him. I just think he's a nice guy and he's a good quarterback. But, we talked about before the season, he couldn't throw the entire offseason. He didn't throw one pass in the summer. He didn't throw one pass really in the fall. And it looked like it once the season began. As soon as he started finally starting to look a little bit like himself, he got hurt again. So I feel bad for him because I do like him and I think he's a good guy, but I feel like he's closer to the end than the beginning.
We went to the Seahawks. We know what they got. Arizona has the anchor of that contract with a quarterback who is probably more interested in winning a Madden Bowl than a Super Bowl. But we'll see what happens there. So we've covered all the NFL, and we've given a little bit of a review there. We got a little bit of time. We got some time left, or you got to get going?
Yeah, we got some time left.
All right. Let's get to the combine. You focus in on that very well every year. First of all, let's start out with the losers. Who lost potential draft capital here?
I mean, it's tough to kind of examine the losers just from, looking at their times and things. But obviously, if you're a speed rusher, you want to come in and if you do decide to run, you want to run a really good 40 time.
Right.
And, I got to be honest, I was a little surprised. Will Anderson clocked in at a 4.6. I'm not saying he's a loser, but that was a little bit. I thought he'd be a 4 or 5 guy just based on the havoc that he's wreaked on the league the last couple of years. That was a little bit of a slow time for him. And I got to be honest, the guy that probably hurt himself the worst is Brenton Cox Jr. This is a guy who was one of the number one players in the country coming out of high school. He signed with Georgia. He was dismissed from the team. So then he signed with Florida. He actually had a pretty decent season for the Gators. He had 9.5 tackles for loss, 41 tackles. He had 4 sacks and 12 starts. And then he came back in 2021. He had 14 and a half tackles for loss and 8.5 sacks. So it's a guy that did have some production, even though he had been dismissed from Georgia. And then he ended up getting kicked off the Gators team. So he's been kicked off 2 SEC squads, and he really needed to have a big-time combine. He ran a 4.840. That is not going to do it. I feel like he was already probably off of some guys' boards to begin with, and then running that time really hurt him. Another guy that hurt himself a little bit was our boy from Notre Dame, Foskey. Right. He ran a 4.58, not terrible, but I thought he'd be a little bit quicker. But still, all in all, had a pretty decent combine. But those were the guys on the edge. You got to run a quick 40 time if you want to get drafted high as an edge rusher. A couple of guys, too, as far as receivers go. Hasselwood out of Arkansas ran a little bit of a slow time. He ran a 4.66. But honestly, any of these wide receivers, they all had pretty decent times. But I think, some of the quarterbacks really that showed out, were more about their athletic time. Some of the guys chose not to throw. Stetson Bennett, it's hard to kind of tell what you got there. But I'd say those dudes were probably the biggest losers so far. But the winners were the guys that I kind of focused on.
Okay, let's get to the winner board. Where are we going up?
Yeah, the winner, in my opinion, from all of these was Nolan Smith, the edge guy out of Georgia. He was injured down the stretch. He didn't play in the college football playoff. So I wasn't saying that his stock fell, but I just think, he kind of, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
Right.
He's back in people's minds. Dude came out and ran a 4.3940.
Wow.
At the combine. And then he did a 41.5 vertical jump. This guy, he was already probably a first-round draft pick, but coming out and doing a 10.8 broad jump, 41.5 vertical, 4.39 40-yard dash. Nolan Smith out of Georgia really, really helped himself, and I think was one of the huge winners of the entire combine. The next top running edge rusher was Byron Young out of Tennessee. There's 2 Byron Youngs at the combine, mind you. One is a defensive tackle at Alabama. The other one is the edge guy out of Tennessee. This guy really shot up the board with what he was able to do. He ran a 4.43 40. He measured in at 6'2", about 250. So you're talking about a 6'2", 250-pound man who ran a 4.440. That's pretty amazing. He also was number 1 in the broad jump, jumped over 11 feet. And then he had a 38-inch vertical, and he put up 22 reps and did the bench. So Byron Young out of Tennessee really, really shot up some draft boards, in my opinion. And then obviously, the workout warrior, man, Anthony Richardson. You got to give him some credit, dude. He's smart. He did the right thing by coming to the combine and running. He ran a 4.43 40. He jumped 40.5 inches. He had a 10-foot 9-inch broad jump. Wow. There's no doubt that this guy is an unbelievable athlete, and he really, really showed it at the combine. But he's not. His athletic ability isn't what's in question. So although he really impressed, 6'4", 244 pounds, 10.5-inch hands, and then obviously the athleticism. He was the number 1 ranked player on the athleticism score out of anybody, and obviously number 1. So just a workout freak. But can he throw the football? that.
Well, that's the whole thing, and the whole thing is when you bring these things up, it gets into a bunch of controversy about it. But it's like, if he's that good an athlete, can he look at a different position? Can he look at wide receiver? Can he look at a different position and get his way onto the field that way? I know it's hard for him to think about that, because that takes you from making, potentially, if you did work out, $50 million a year to what, $25 million a year? I mean, quarterback is the guy who's always going to get paid. Wide receivers, not so much. So, but I mean, I don't know. If he's going to be that much of a project, but he's that much of an athlete, if someone could convince him, man, if you want to play in the NFL, you'll get rich. Just use your athletic talent at a different position.
Yeah. One other guy that really improved, I think, or maybe not improved, because he was probably already near the top to begin with, but that's, the quarterback out of Ohio State. I've watched these combines for years. Everyone who has said that he probably had one of the best combine throwing performances they've ever seen. I mean, no balls touched the ground, and if they did, it was because the wide receiver dropped it and it hit him right in the hands. I mean, short throws, intermediate throws, deep throws. He looked unbelievable. Now, will that translate into the NFL game? I have no idea. I mean, we're gonna have to see an Ohio State quarterback succeed to believe it. Justin Fields certainly is on his way, and I think C.J. Stroud will be the next one. I mean, this guy is a pure passer. And he really, really helped himself, Joe, by the way he threw it in Indianapolis.
The only thing that is going to be the problem is going to a team. He's going to go to a bad team. And like, Houston is the place where quarterback careers go to die.
Yeah.
David Carr. I mean, the list of quarterbacks who went there and tried to be successful, and it didn't work out. Deshaun Watson, a lot of it had to do with his own problems.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, Houston is not a town, and he's going to have a first time a coach coaching him, a defensive-minded coach coaching him. It's going to be tough. It's not like, Justin Herbert was lucky to go where he went. Pat Mahomes, we talked about many times. He went to the perfect. If you're a quarterback and you want to get coached, you want Andy Reid over anybody in football. Yeah. I mean, and C.J. Stroud. I wish him the best. I just think it's going to take a while down there. It's going to.
Well, I think the ideal scenario for C.J. Stroud is if Bryce Young goes to Houston. If Houston stays pat at number 2 and drafts Bryce Young. And then C.J. Stroud potentially goes number 4 to Indianapolis. I think that would be the best case scenario. I mean, let's talk about this kid for a second. 3,700 yards, 41 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 67% of his passes completed, 177.7 rating. Nobody had better numbers than this guy. And I just think Indianapolis would be a really good place for C.J. to go. I just hope, for his sake, though. I hope for his. Well, yeah. I mean, the owner's a moron, but I mean, Peyton Manning was able to win a lot of games there with that same owner. So if CJ can go to Indianapolis, I think that's the spot for him. They've got wide receivers. They've got obviously a unbelievable running back. Defense has some solid pieces. I think if CJ can go to Indianapolis, he'll be in a lot better shape than if he were to go to Houston.
If they, you remember one thing about Peyton, as great as Peyton was, I mean, having who do you have, Jim Mora first and then Tony Dungy? I mean, they're pretty solid professional coaches to coach you, and that helped a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about this new coach for Indianapolis. I mean, do I think he's going to come in year one and tear it up as a NFL coach? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he's a first-time coach. I mean, obviously he did really well as the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. But, it's all going to come down to, who he hires as his offense coordinator and, what they can do together to get a young quarterback going. But I do think, hiring Gus Bradley as his D coordinator was a good move, and I don't know if he's appointed his offensive coordinator yet. Or have you?
I haven't heard anything about that, but yeah, I totally agree with the Gus Bradley. If you're a first-time coach, having a solid defensive guy who's been a head coach there with you is a really good idea, especially because that means he doesn't have to get involved in the defense. He's a defensive guy. He can actually work on being a head coach, which too many of these guys, when they take these positions, some can handle it, some can't. Most can't, I say. When you if you're going to be a head coach, don't be calling the plays, don't be calling the defenses. Be the head coach, unless you're somebody who's blessed with it, like Andy Reid or Doug Peterson, or one of these few guys that can handle the job. McVay, and those kind of guys. Shanahan.
Yes, and actually, I've heard that the Colts are going to hire Jim Bob Cooter. Sounds like a trucker's name, but that's actually Jim Bob. I know him pretty well because he was quarterback here at Tennessee, and he's been in the league for a long time. He was a graduate assistant at Tennessee, and then he was at the Colts in 2009. He most recently was the passing game coordinator at Jacksonville last year.
That's good.
This is a guy that's got some he's got some chops in the NFL. So I think it'd be a good spot for CJ to go to the Colts, especially over Houston.
No, but you know what Jim Bob Cooter really sounds like? A guy that's racing on the dirt tracks of Texas, hoping to get a job at NASCAR.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a trucker to me, but he was a dude. He's from Tennessee originally. He went to the University of Tennessee and was a backup there, and has been a pretty successful coach since he began his career in 2007.
Well, we'll see how he does. Oh, and hey, I know Peterson gets a lot of credit, but maybe he had a lot to do with Trevor Lawrence's development.
I think that's why he got the job.
So we're just about out of time. Anything else we got to touch the base on tonight?
I think that's about it for me, except your boy Kevin Durant is hurt again. He got hurt in the shoot around 2 nights ago, rolled his ankle when he was out there taking shots by himself. So, good luck winning a championship with this dude.
I tell you, if you are a New York Knicks fan and what you're seeing this year out of this team, which is overachieving, I don't think they're actually a real championship contender, but they're giving you a reason to watch. And you should get down on your knees or whatever you believe in and thank the higher power that they didn't make the Nets mistake, because they were this close to making the same mistake the Nets made. The Knicks went out. They brought in some good players. They got a good coach. They've got a good product to at least cheer for. And, if hopefully somewhere along the line they can get that premium championship style ball or main number one option. But right now I like Brunson and I like what I'm seeing from him.
I do too. I think they definitely made a good move. I like Thibodeau as a coach. I mean,
he's great.
It hasn't been perfect there, but I think he's done well with what he's had. RJ Barrett has come along, I like bringing in Brunson. I think he's done a really good job since coming over from Dallas. And this team is 39-28. They're third in the Atlantic Division. Julius Randle is legit.
Yeah.
I like this team, but I just got some breaking news on the ticker. Looks like it was announced about 40 minutes ago that Patrick Ewing has been released of his duties from Georgetown.
Not surprising.
Not a big shock. 75-109 as a coach there. I feel bad for him.
Wonder if Rick Pitino will be looking for some kind of property down in the Washington area. I hope not, but we'll see. Before we go, one last thing, not a good subject right now, because they were the top number 1 and 2 coming out of the NCAA a couple of years ago. Zion Williamson's got to find a way to stay on the court, and John Morant's got to find a way to stay home instead of going out off the court.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a disaster
with Ja and his entourage. I mean, there's been fights on the bench. I don't know if you saw that Shannon Sharp had to be pulled off his dad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a good look. He needs to, if he wants to be a superstar and be the face of the NBA, he needs to focus on that instead of being
close. All he had to do was stay out of trouble. I mean, everybody loves his game. Everybody, Ja, and the kids love him and everything. He had everything going his way, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but the last 2.5 months, 3 months, whatever it's been, man, he just can't get it right. And then
and me, I'm the biggest Zion fan in the world, but what the hell's going on, man? I mean, this guy, had a minor injury in January, and we haven't seen him since. I just don't understand. I heard he could potentially be out till the All-Star break. Well, now it's March 10th tomorrow, and we still haven't seen him. So I don't understand. I mean, I get being cautious with the guy, but at some point he's got to play.
Right.
And I mean, he's on the court. Whenever he's on the court, he's amazing. 27 points a game, 6 assists, 8 boards. It can do no wrong when he's on the court, but you have to actually be on the court.
On the court, yeah. Otherwise, it's only just potential, and that never works out. So, you got man coverage going on this week? Anything going on?
Yeah, we are actually picking up this Sunday. So we're going to be coming at you live Sunday, doing a deeper dive into the combine, all our winners and losers. Also, as we mentioned last week, we're going to be breaking down the Senior Bowl, which guys really helped themselves doing that. We're going to finish up all the recruiting stuff from the last recruiting date, winners and losers of that. And then also the transfer portal, who ended up where and which guys that transferred are going to have the biggest impact.
All right. So, people, have a good weekend. Tune in to man coverage on Sunday. Next week, I think we'll do a little bit diving to the NCAA tournament, since it'll be the first day of the tournament while we tune in next week. Should be a good one. This is where it starts. Conference tournaments all weekend long. That's what I'll be watching. Looking forward to see what happens. Hope some of the area people move on around here. Don't know if they will. And we'll get into the NCAA tournament. We'll see what the biggest basketball tournament in the world gives us this year.
Go Duke. Go Vols.
All right. Have a good night. Have a good weekend.
You too, buddy.